Why did you choose Dragonboat over roadmap tools? So would love to hear a little bit more, how you were thinking when you started to. Actually, I don't think even like someone else came to us and I realized, oh, actually it's you, it's your company. So it's an interesting story to learn even for me.
Yeah, so we were using another road mapping tool prior to it, and it was very much a cosmetic tool to sort of communicate the roadmap to key stakeholders. And we were realizing that ultimately, and as we all know, it's about the ability to close the loop, right? You need to be able to close the loop and sort of say, well, it's great. It's one thing just communicating a pretty Gantt chart and then keep updating that Gantt chart, but what actually drives the inputs into that Gantt chart? And that's essentially what Dragonboat was. We were looking for a solution that sort of offered that. It's like, well, we have all these inputs. We want to be able to manage and track how much we want to invest and how that investment is actually doing, and then also manage, for example, things like scoring each one of our initiatives and to help us prioritize what we should do first versus second. And then once we have all of that done and the inputs are well defined, the output, which is the Gantt chart, is relatively straightforward. That's the sort of easy part. So that was one of the primary reasons why we did this, because we really did want to be able to have a single source of truth of our initiatives. And I mean, I'm not saying by any means that it's perfect right now, but at least we have a place where, because we work with all our tactical planning happens in Jira, and we do more of our quote unquote strategic planning in Dragonboat. So, and then the interface between the two also is super useful, because we can then transpose the initiatives from Dragonboat into Jira, so that then kind of flows downstream into our sprint planning process.
Right. And I think that's like most of our team. I mean, we knew that the strategic part of the product is quite essential, really just determine, right? You could have a very high velocity team and then build everything perfectly, but if you feed the decision in there not in the best way, it's not going to drive the outcome we want, right? So I think that, remember at PayPal, we had this Shamana process. We spent so much time so much spreadsheets and ultimately, but that we did, it was tough to have those conversations, to debate on where we should invest, but it's just so important to have that conversation and difficult discussions up front and early on, so that would really determine the direction we want to go. So, and that really helped. I mean, looking back to think of how amazing PayPal has become, from a single product to multi-product to multi-product to portfolio of portfolios. And this the thought process, and as painful as it is to operationalize it, is in essence really the foundation drive it, I think.
Absolutely. And I think, and it kind of relates to one of the other questions I'm just looking at that came through, is like, how do you keep all the teams aligned as they grow, and how do you manage who communicates what and when? And this is exactly it, right? So as the teams grow, that is exactly the sort of secret sauce, because as the one thing that happens as teams grow, and this is, I remember us having these conversations the early days of PayPal, is we were just spending a lot of times in meetings just communicating with people about, hey, this is what I'm doing, and what are you working on? And then, well, maybe we should collaborate here, and maybe we should solve this. And it was very organic. And I think we've evolved a lot since then, right? With the advent of multiple tools, and also, again, to use the word process, where what we typically do is, and we're small enough to be able to get away with it. I think I don't know the person who asked the question, how large the company is, but the most important thing, I think, is first, of course, is building a culture of collaboration throughout the product lifecycle. So from ideation through research to design, implementation, launch, and growth. That's part one. And then consistent communication, and this is across the board, right? Not just internally, but with the customers, with the board members, execs, and development teams, so that everyone's aligned and everyone's aware of what's happening and coming down the pipeline. By no means are we perfect, but we attempt to do that because I think it's important to know, everyone marching to the sort of same drumbeat, and that's important. And this is kind of where good product management helps, and product can play the role of what I call a servant leader, because product managers are not necessarily kind of the drivers. Ultimately, it's, yes, we're driving, the execution and sometimes product strategy, but product also plays a huge amount in making sure everyone is aligned and everyone's aware of what's happening. Whether that means setting up product review meetings. For example, what we leverage is we have product review meetings across the board, whether it's with our cross-functional teams, or design review meetings with our cross-functional teams, with our customer success managers, with our executive team. We also then have meetings or well-documented product briefs that are shared broadly. Right. You want to share the product brief, and everyone has a chance to comment on the product brief. And we use Confluence to sort of write out the product briefs, not giant essays, but hey, here's kind of what we're trying to do, and here's what we're trying to launch. Our designers spend a lot of time, communicating what it is that we want to build with the engineering team and with the cross-functional team. So doing this on a consistent basis. And this is kind of where the product manager helps, right? Having these conversations and driving these conversations with the stakeholders to make sure that people are getting the information that they need. Now, how do you know whether is it too many meetings or not enough? That's a tougher question because it depends on the company culture. There are some companies that are very meeting oriented. And there are other companies that people love to read. They'll just go, you know what, just all I have to do is upload my document or my product brief and send out a Slack message and say, send your comments, and people will just comment on documents and it'll work. In other situations, no, we have to bring a team together and do a review. And for example, at PayPal, we have to do more meetings. At Chatmeter, it's more meeting heavy. So we do spend a lot more time on that. It depends on the culture.
Yeah, I totally, I definitely observed quite of those behaviors as well. I think what I've also noticed that especially with the remote and distributed different teams, it's going to be a hybrid multi-channel approach, right? So you will have a system of information, right? We call it source to choose or whatnot, so that people can read it, they can comment it, but then you also have a live synchronized moment where you can kind of have a conversation, talk about it, so that people will only cover things they want to talk about more, and the other one's just like you already know, you have information there. So that's like the asynchronized with a tool or sort of the information access method, plus the live session seems to be the more norm these days.
Yeah, and I think one thing I would also caution, I think, is that with people, more and more companies being remote only or remote first, it does become, you end up with this, Zoom fatigue is real, right? So I think there needs to be good balance around this, because while Zoom fatigue is real, it's also hard to keep people engaged when everyone's just remote and sitting in front of their terminals all day or in front of their computers all day. So it's about finding that balance and being able to engage the group virtually. And there's some nice tools that allow for it. We use a tool called, for example, Miro. It's like online whiteboarding, and I know they're a customer of yours too. So it's pretty cool because it helps with the conversation, especially with synchronous conversations, and even asynchronous to an extent.
Right, definitely true.